Welcome everyone. This week's Manage Protect webinar is about the SMB1001 cybersecurity framework and how to incorporate it to create a strategic advantage for your business. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and as the traditional custodians of the land on which we're recording. Today, I'm pleased to introduce our two cybersecurity experts, Luke Irwin and Ryan Ettridge. Normally, we'd have to pay to attend some huge, expensive conference to hear them present, so very pleased to have them with me. Good morning, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Morning. Good to be here. Thanks, Claire.
Ryan is a recognised leader and speaker on cybersecurity and business growth, and as the co-founder and CEO of CyberCert, Ryan brings technical insight with a real understanding of the day-to-day realities of cybersecurity, especially with smaller businesses. Luke also brings over 20 years of IT experience, and in recent times, he has focused around cybersecurity, risk management, and cyber resilience. Luke advises on SMB 1001, ISO 27001, Essential 8, SOC 2, NIST, CSF, CPS 234, and no doubt many other baffling acronyms. What we are going to talk about today is Ryan's going to take us through the state of SMB 1001 in Australia, but we will be focusing more on the how rather than the what today. I'm assuming everyone is reasonably familiar with the framework. We're going to look at how does SMB 1001 help you and your clients, how to structure an offering so it reduces risk, makes money, and helps your clients enhance their security posture. Just some best practice and traps to avoid for those who are newer to the process. And then I'm going to just talk about how Manage Protect can help support all of this within your business. And we'll have some questions at the end. If you do have questions, please do press the Q&A button at the bottom and we'll either try and get to it in situ or a little bit later at the end. So before we get started, what we thought was we'd ask you to answer a question, and it's basically around where are you up to in your SMB 1001 implementation? I hate the word journey, but journey. So if you want to give us an indication of where you're up to, we'll try and tailor our presentation around that a little bit. All right, we've got the solid offerings winning. It's a pretty even actually across the base. Doing it for a few clients but don't have a repeatable process is also in the lead. Still working it out. All right, well, bad news. We don't have a clear winner. We're going to kind of try and cover as many bases as we can throughout the presentation. But again, we have some experts on board, so please do reach out, put your hand up and ask a question if you need to. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Ryan will start his presentation and then we'll come back to Luke.
Wonderful. Thank you, Claire. And good to see some familiar attendees and, of course, a bunch of new ones. Can you see my PDF PowerPoint presentation thingy?
Yes.
Wonderful. So good morning, everyone, and thanks for the invitation, Claire and Manage Protect, and good to be with you again, Luke. So Certified Cybersecurity Simplified for SMBs is a tongue twister, especially my wife is a speech therapist for kids. It's difficult for some of the kids to say that really fast. So certification, SMB 1001 is the international standard for small businesses, specifically designed for small businesses worldwide. If we've got ISO for enterprises, then SMB 1001 is for small businesses. ISO was designed for enterprises. It was designed specifically for those with resources within their organization that are cybersecurity experts that understand how to interpret risk, make decisions, and then build a program of work based on the risks that they've identified. The difference, of course, with SMBs versus enterprises is they don't have the same level of expertise and probably never will, because it's not their job to be able to do that. Their job is to focus on what they do best, which is running their small business. This is the fundamental difference in why SMB 1001 is successful for small businesses versus ISOs, which still has its place for some small businesses where it's mandated or they're at a maturity where it's appropriate. But actually, ISO and that subjectivity that goes along with picking the right controls to suit the risks is the fundamental challenge as to why cybersecurity cannot scale to 330 million small businesses worldwide. I'm just going to let that land. The biggest challenge that we have is you cannot take an enterprise mindset and apply that to a small business because it doesn't scale. It breaks supply chains, it breaks insurance, it breaks compliance, it breaks the SMB. This is the fundamental reason why SMB 1001 is actually working across all of the jurisdictions worldwide, because it is the same fundamental problem in the US, in the UK, across Europe as it is here in Australia and New Zealand. So, certification seems to be the way in which we can provide that consistency and non-subjectivity across the world and give everyone a common language to use to work towards a common outcome or a predictable outcome. But of course, it's up to you to work out the how specifically that you're going to bring that to life. And that's the role of the MSP and the partners and consultants like Luke and the help of Manage Protect. So, SMBs don't want to learn cybersecurity. They shouldn't have to, but they do want to know that it's done to an international standard, or at least to a standard that they can depend on, and that the people that they serve can actually depend on that certificate as well, right? So it's the difference, again, everyone's heard me say this before, the difference between the operator's manual and the technical manual. You cannot give the operator of the system the same manual as the technician. The technician's job is to know what is working under the hood. The operator's role is to know how to use the system effectively so that they don't break it, right? Literacy, expertise. We do not want to make SMBs experts. We want to make them literate. Claire, you got a question? Was there a question?
No, I'm fascinated. Okay. Please go on.
Good. So, SMBs want the confidence, but they don't have the skills and capacity, capability, or even the desire to become cybersecurity experts. It's like, you don't want to give me the accountant's manual to work out how to be an accountant, but I do have a responsibility to ensure accounting is done in accordance with the law, and my responsibilities or accountability as the business owner. CyberCert is the certification body against SMB 1001. SMB 1001 is the tiered international fit-for-purpose standard that meets the SMBs where they're at. We also know that SMB, as a generalized term, can actually be broken down more specifically. But of course, you can't get too specific, which is why SMB 1001 has 5 levels to meet the hairdresser where they're at in Vanuatu, through to the law firm in Brisbane and the technology company in San Francisco, and guide them through that maturity journey. SMB 1001's become known, and I had several conversations with some UK counterparts yesterday evening, which is their morning. SMB 1001 is the gap filler. In the UK, there's something called the Cyber Essentials, which has the fundamental technical controls for small businesses. It's 5 technical controls. It misses the people and process. It misses the business email compromise, the social engineering, the aspects that most cyber insurers look for as the most common underwriting criteria. And so it goes Cyber Essentials, ISO. There's this gap between the essential technical controls and the ISO controls. SMB 1001 is that pathway. It can be the journey. It's the stepping stone. It's the continuous process to guide the SMBs through that maturity journey. And if you can consider this as the gap filler, of course, the gaps in Australia and New Zealand, there's no standard specifically designed for small businesses. So this fills that gap. It does not substitute the contractual obligations that SMBs have for government or for specific supply chain contracts if they're mandated to take up a certain obligation. But where it's not specified, SMB 1001 provides that standard, that certifiable standard, that non-subjective outcome for SMBs, which means for MSPs and partners, you now have a non-subjective program of work, a certifiable cybersecurity program of work that you can guide your SMBs through. Why is this cool? It means the supply chains have SMB 1001 that they can write into their supply chain and rely on certification. The difference between this versus an ISO, SMB 1001 specifies the controls at each of the levels so that when you're certified against SMB 1001, the subjectivity is removed away from having to dive into the statements of applicability in the reports that come back in enterprise certifications like ISO SOC 2 and others. So there's still some subjectivity in the enterprise ones, which of course therefore doesn't scale for the SMBs. So SMB 1001 being quite prescriptive at each of the levels means that when you see that certification, the certification gives you the confidence that the SMB has met the requirements of SMB 1001 with the help of, as we know, requirement number one, which is the technical support specialist that gives the SMB and the people that they serve the confidence that it's done. Did anyone count how many times I said non-subjective? It's recorded. Probably a lot. This is the power of this thing. Certification is a non-subjective outcome. So, company directors, boards, this is the subjectivity that we're trying to remove, right? For small businesses across Australia, New Zealand, the US, the UK, Europe, GDPR, privacy obligations, reasonable steps, all of this stuff is so subjective. Just make sure you do reasonable steps. What the heck is reasonable steps? Reasonable steps need some level of definition. Otherwise, again, there's too much ambiguity when we say, yes, we've done it. Every company under the Corporations Act and the Companies Act in New Zealand has a fiduciary responsibility to demonstrate reasonable steps, that they've protected their systems, the data, the people, the intention of the business. Certification is that reasonable steps. The law societies, therefore, have helped kick this along, give everyone confidence that SMB 1001 is the demonstrable reasonable steps for small businesses across the country. Not the safe harbor. If shit hits the fan, then you still need to be able to stand behind the stuff that you've done. It's not a safe harbor. It doesn't stop you from having to prove that you've done what you say you've done. But because of this, it allows the people that SMBs work with and for to depend on that. The insurers. You'll see more and more cyber insurance brokers and partners across the world that recognize certification, CyberCert, and then provide a right-size, fit-for-purpose cyber insurance policy for you as partners and for your SMBs. This collaboration with SMB 1001 insurers, tech partners, and SMBs is this ecosystem that's all moving together. But really, one of the most powerful things that we're seeing across the world is that the certification allows this scalability to the millions and millions of SMBs that you just cannot. Not even with automations in GRC and third-party risk management tools, you cannot scale to millions and millions of SMBs with subjective questionnaires, even if you attempt to automate some of the responses. It's not possible because it's inconsistent. So you'll have the questionnaires answered inconsistently, and then this tool, AI, has to, it doesn't work. So the consistency comes through standardization, certification, and that's the scalability. Now, how do we scale to that? Well, of course, the ecosystem of partners that understand, that are the technicians, that understand what's under the hood. Your job, the partner's job, is to understand how you would architect that for the types of clients, the SMBs, that you serve. And the more you can inner box that or make that consistent across your portfolio and your service offering, the more profitable it is, the more repeatable it is, the more consistent it is, as more you bring in subjectivity and customization, that's where you start to lose time and profit and so on, right? So the vendor and the MSP partner ecosystem is the key to being able to scale to 1.2 million addressable small businesses in Australia alone, 2.6, 1.2 of them or something turnover revenue, not just the holding ABNs, but actually turnover revenue. That's a lot of SMBs that need help. How are you going to get to 1.2 million SMBs if it's not repeatable and consistent? How? AI won't do that. It's not going to happen. So really quickly, before I hand over to Luke here, and I'm not monitoring any questions. If there's any questions, let me know. 2026.
I'll give it to you when you finish this slide.
Awesome. Okay. So a real quick recap on how you can inner box some of your commercial offerings, right? Around the certification tiers. Doesn't mean you can't have some level of grayness and subjectivity around these, but this is really common now as we start to see those that are getting the real runs on the board are those that have got their sales material, their contracts, their delivery packages ready to go for SMBs around these levels of outcomes. So bronze shuts the front door to the most common cyber threats globally. Every one of your businesses that has an internet connection, which is 100% of them in today's environment, must at least be able to show that they've done the 6 things or 7 things in 2026. Yeah. Silver provides the most common cyber liability insurance underwriting criteria. So if you want to be cyber insurable, it's highly recommended you move to silver. This is the outcome-based conversation and the language we're trying to shift here. And then gold provides the most common criteria and requirements that would allow you to become compliant. Of course, you need to design your incident response, your policies, your processes around the specific things you need to be compliant with. So ransomware reporting obligations, notifiable data breach. It doesn't make you compliant. It allows you to become compliant with the help of Luke and other consultants to help you design that. And if you're not the experts there, then rely on the experts, which is why Luke is on the call. So here's how it works at the high level. The why is done. We know what the outcomes are. We know that it's recognized by the insurers, the law societies, the supply chains, and so on. We can see the wave and the momentum, not just here, New Zealand, US, UK, across Europe. It is moving here. Oh, I just flicked back. Good. So here, pick the level that matches you and your clients' types of outcomes. It doesn't mean it's a one size fits all. You might have some silvers and golds and platinums and diamonds. Build your portfolios and product sets around that. And then work with the likes of Luke and your technology partners and Manage Protect to work out how you're going to package that. So you and the SMBs don't have to figure this out alone. The ecosystem of partners are here, which is why there's a whole bunch of us on the call now. But with that, I'm going to pause there, Claire, and I think that's a nice segue into Luke helping us bring this to life.
Thank you very much. We just had one question, and I guess both of you may have thoughts on it. Is around from Don, so who says, "How can we overcome the customer's perception that we're just ticking boxes with the SMB1001 process?"
Well, in some cases, the boxes to be ticked are the right boxes to be ticked, right? And ticking the boxes isn't necessarily a bad thing if they are the right ones and they're done in the right way. The idea with the standards define the boxes to be ticked. Yeah. And if there's other over and above boxes that you need to add to that, then that's at the discretion of the professionals, which is you, Don, and team, is to say, well, what else do we need to do? If gold is the minimum baseline to get a certifiable outcome, what are the other things we need to do? And Luke, you probably got a view on that too.
Yeah, I'll touch on this in the bit we're going to cross into in a second, but the way which I position it to get away from the box ticking perception is use it as a marketing play. You are having a recognized certification that you can now market to. Turn cybersecurity investment into a competitive advantage. We protect your data better than our peers in the industry do. So if your customers can tell that to their customers, they've now got another point of competitive difference. And if they're not doing it, others already are. So I leverage it from a marketing perspective. It's people are blasé now when their data gets breached. They go, oh yeah, who cares? It's already been breached 10 times this year already, big deal. But they want to know that it is protected before it gets breached.
Yeah.
So,
In the same way, if you were to buy a car and it's got a safety certificate with it, you want to know those boxes are ticked. You want to know because the certificate itself actually has specified the minimum criteria that you need to have for that car to be safe and to use it in a digital world, for your business to be safe to run that digital world. Get your safety certificate. Your seatbelts don't work, then what the heck are you doing driving that vehicle?
yeah, I want to know my seatbelt and airbags actually work. Kind of
Yes.
attached to breathing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an
Non-optional.
advanced standard. So if we can't tick these boxes, what the heck are we ticking?
Yeah, exactly. There was another question there from Norton where he asked, what's to prevent a cowboy from claiming 1001 when they haven't done the training or work? For the platinum and diamond, it's an external auditor will come through and certify and assess that. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Ryan, but at the bronze, silver, gold level, there are randomized assessments and evaluations.
Yep. Correct. Yeah. So what was the question specifically again?
What is to prevent a cowboy from claiming 1001 when they haven't done the training or the work?
From claiming. So if an SMB goes through it and so you still have to specify your internal contact, even if it's an internal. So an SMB says, hey, we want to go and do bronze, and they specify an internal contact. You have to name them, email, and contact details so they can and will be contacted by CyberCert at some point. If there's an intentional fraudulent certification that's been issued, then of course that can be revoked at any point that that's been highlighted, either by the MSP partner network or through a randomized audit, or at some point, of course, if you have to be intentionally fraudulent as the company director that has said, yes, we've done these 6 things at bronze, you have intentionally fraudulently lied, then the technical support specialist, who is the second check, has also fraudulently lied. And if you go through silver and gold and get your insurance policy in 2026, which is in gold, then you have 3 times been intentionally negligent and fraudulent, and perhaps there's something that that business needs to reflect on.
Well, it's the other thing to consider there is that if they're just claiming they've got it when they haven't done it, each one of the certifications can be verified and validated on the CyberCert portal to being confirmed as true and accurate, and when it was issued and to what level.
It is actually a legal instrument that
Yes.
they're providing their company directed documents to prove that they are who they say they are. It can't be delegated down to the security officer. It actually has to be demonstrated that it is the company director or equivalent that is
Mhm.
attesting to having that certification.
There,
So it's not a
there
piece of
are,
paper from Timu.
That's
It is
not
actually
reliable.
a legitimate certificate. Yeah.
there are MSPs I've supported on this pathway, and I can fill in all of the boxes except for the last one, which is, as the director, I hereby attest that the information provided is true and accurate reflection of the organization's security posture.
Yeah.
I can do everything up until that point. It's like, guys, you need to log in and do this. I've confirmed everything else is correct.
Yeah.
Um,
Legally attested to by the company director and non-repudiably recorded in the CyberCert system. So if and when it is audited, then we can immediately revoke that. We can also prevent that organization from taking up another certificate with CyberCert in future as well. So
hmm.
that is the rules and the terms and conditions. You can check that out at cybercert.ai/terms.
There'll be another term we'll touch on with reference to the level you can sell at, but we'll cross that when we get into the presentation. But yeah, any more questions
Cool.
before we crack on, everybody?
Let's get moving. If I shared the right screen, does it look okay?
We
It's
can't see anything.
How about now?
There we go. You're showing the mode that I would normally read.
Sorry, guys. I'm not good at this, am I? How about this?
All
How
good.
about just my whole screen? How about that?
That'll work. All right. So what we have here, what we're going to cover off is some wonderful fun things about the SMB 1001. One of the things I'll add on to what Ryan said when he was talking about the scope, the cost, the everything around this, is that to put in ISO and SOC and how it would break an SMB, also from a budget perspective. GRC software, like I'm working with a 300-seat organization now. Their GRC software is $28,000 USD per year for one framework. That's before you look at the auditor, which will set them back another $30,000 to $40,000, plus my time, plus the internal management time. ISO, SOC, NIST, they're great at what they do, but if you try to shoehorn them into an SMB, you will break the MSB and lose trust. MSP, the SMB 1001 addresses that beautifully, hence why I decided to be the first victim to go to Diamond. It went pretty well. It's a really straightforward standard. It is prescriptive. Quick background on me, can we move on quickly? This is year number 23. Got the CISP, got the system, and for some reason I thought doing a master's degree while running and growing a business was a good idea, and apparently I don't like sleep. So I work through alongside MSPs to do all of this type of stuff. You want to jump on the next slide, Claire? Why? This starts the conversation around cybersecurity, why you want it, why you need it, how it actually benefits your clients. When we look at the componentry, as Ryan said, ISO is risk and scope based. You need a Luke, you need a Ryan, you need a few people to sit down and design policy, process, procedures, registers, logs, escalation pathways, data diagrams. All of these things, they need a lot of work. This framework enables you to provide a structured approach to improving a posture from, let's be honest, what is typically quite woeful across the majority of SMBs in the market. And it also gets rid of that, you're just trying to sell me stuff argument, because if the business has gone, oh, we want to get gold, because again, you've taken, say, the marketing play to get it over the line, you can now go, well, you said you wanted gold, you need a password manager, you need a remote desktop gateway, you need a firewall, you need a managed service. Because the business has made a choice to head down a pathway towards certification, you've now got the justification to come up against their points of opposition. You can demonstrate that they've gone, hey, you said you wanted to go to diamond or gold or platinum, whatever it might be. But now you've got the evidence to push back and go, you asked for this, have you changed your mind? You said you wanted to go to gold. This is what we do to get you to gold. And you want to go to gold because you want insurance, because you want the certification, because you want to demonstrate to your customers that you are taking appropriate, reasonable steps to protect their data and their information. Customers care about that stuff. Next slide, please, Claire. What it gives you as an MSP. Start you on the documentation towards a governance process. To contextualize that, I'm currently working with about 4 MSPs to get them through the platinum diamond pathway. And their longer term goal is to head down the ISO path because they want to be able to tender for work that needs ISO. Now, going from a 12-person MSP with some basic policies are written to ISO is how you cripple a business, unless you have a very mature approach to change management. And I mean that in the sense of both what's referred to as the ProSci method, like human change management, and the ITIL level of change management, because you're telling you guys they've got to do something else, you're going to have redundancies. Or not redundancies. You're going to have staff walk out because it's going to annoy them. You have to be in a good position to want to move towards ISO. And don't get me wrong, I love ISO. I generate a lot of work from it, but it takes a lot of work. SMB1001 is clearly defined, clear scoped, very clear and very prescriptive. ISO and SOC, how long is a piece of string? And to contextualize that, some of you might have seen me give a presentation literally called 4 Frameworks Walk into a Bar. And the crux of it is that you can pass ISO 27001, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, Ryan, having no firewalls, no patching, no passwords, no MFA. So long as me, as the specialist, has identified in writing to the executives the risks and implications of their decisions and they've accepted that, then that is deemed to be a tolerable risk to the business and they will still pass ISO. Does anyone think that actually sounds like you're secure? So that's a bit of a problem. The advantage of SMB 1001 is it addresses that specific thing because it's prescriptive. It's not a judgment-based call. If we look at, say, SMB 1001 and even E8, under both of those models, and I'm going to hope that everyone here knows what a honeypot is for an internet security perspective, you're not allowed to run them under this due to patching requirements because you're intentionally putting an RDP server on the internet. So you're not allowed to do that. Under ISO, there's a valid business reason. Under SOC, there's a valid business reason. This taking down the SMB 101 pathway sets you up on that governance and documentation pathway, lets you progress towards the larger levels when you want to, and gives you a position you can build upon and demonstrate your position to your clients, to your customers, to your peers. And as more of you and your peers do it, others are going to have to do it as well to drag it up, which will hopefully and ideally lift the overall security posture across MSPs, because I've come across some where it is quite frankly terrifying what I have seen. Yeah, it's horrifying.
There's a question here, Luke,
Yeah,
from the crowd. I was under the impression that I don't need ISO 27001 even if a client needs it. Am I wrong?
that you are correct. There is only I can only think of one security framework that has a mandatory inheritable, and that is CMMC 2.0. And you're only obligated to achieve that if you are working with US Department of Defense or the Pentagon. It has an inherited, and high trust. High trust also pushes down, but that's a interesting private commercialized framework, not a certification.
Yeah. Auditors and accredited certifiers, of course, you need before a client can actually get 27001,
Yes.
of course, you need, yeah.
Yeah, that's a requirement of ISO 17020 and JASAN's requirements. But yeah, Norton, you are not obligated to have ISO if your client has it. They can make that a requirement of their internal risk management process, and that's their choice. But it is not a mandatory. Same goes for SOC 2. That a client can go, all of our vendors must have X, and that is their right. But it is not a requirement of the standard or the framework. And with your businesses using 365 and work from home, yes, I agree. A firewall appliance is redundant. Software firewall based in Windows, managed via an MDM. That's how I've addressed it with how I've advised multiple MSPs to address it with their clients. There is a
Yeah.
firewall. It's just a software firewall, and as
Yeah.
long as the
SMB1001 doesn't mandate an appliance. It doesn't say you need to do that. Of course, if there is one, then that's in scope.
yes,
But if it is a BYOD or a mobile workforce, then software firewalls, VPNs are in there as well. SASE is a very common architecture these days that actually addresses a whole bunch of the requirements in SMB 1001.
exactly. Yeah. So is that hopefully that's answered your question, Norton.
Cool.
Cool. Next slide, please. Okay. The 3 layers of offering and how to get this over the line. Discovery, maturity. Well, you can all read, but how to break that down a little bit further. So when you're doing the discovery and the maturity mapping, quick assessment of where they are. Work out what controls do they currently have. Do they have an acceptable use policy? Do they have a code of conduct? Do they have employee contracts? Do they run background checks? What are the things that they are doing across their system already? And from there, you've now got a gap analysis. From there, you can build out a remediation plan. The implementation. What tools do you need, via what stack, via what vendor, via what partner? And this is where Managed Protect can jump in and provide support and guidance via their tooling stuff that's pre-mapped. Things like the password management system, the vulnerability management, the patch management, all the bits and pieces in there. The more you can single source that, the easier your job becomes. If you're jumping into 10 different tools, you're going to hate yourself. Having worked in enterprise IT and security, tool sprawl is a problem. It's a massive problem. When we're talking about hardening, that's applying the configs. That's doing the conditional accesses. That's doing all the things to make it harder for bad data to get in. Now, you can go over and above than what the SMB requires, and no one's going to shoot you for that. Just be aware you're probably not being paid for it. So see what you can do. Documentation and alignment. This is the part where I normally come in and support organizations if they haven't got the skills or background to do policy development and development of GRC stuff. If you can do that, great. If not, reach out for a chat. Happy to assist. But this is where you're looking at acceptable use policies, as I said, writing them and aligning to needs. It is the cyber incident response plans. One of the classic ones, and I've gotten my one past my diamond level auditor, my cyber incident response plan. Isolate the device from the computer, contact my MSP, ring my insurance provider. I am not a DFIR specialist. I have paid other people to be specialists for me. That is the extent of my cyber incident response plan. It is not my job to fix it. It is not my job to respond to it. We have paid specialists to do that for me. Now, if your client does not want to have cyber insurance and thinks you are their incident response team, I've got some really uncomfortable news for you. Your life is going to be a little challenging for a while, because to meet that requirement, you now need to detail out a full cyber incident response plan that has been risk assessed and risk managed, and you're going to have to develop playbooks on how to respond to the most common classes of responses. Or they can put their hand in their pocket and pay to make it somebody else's problem. I advise point 2. Though, if you want to give the work to me, I'll happily take point A. When you're doing this ongoing, sorry,
Sorry.
it's all good. Ongoing compliance and renewal. Be aware it's an annualized subscription. So they need to pony up every year the license fee. Make sure you capture evidence. Now, in gold, you are not necessarily obligated to capture evidence. I would strongly, strongly encourage it, because it makes your life easier when it comes through later. You can go, what did we have last year? Is it still the same? What has changed? People might still be calling them QBRs or quarterly reviews. Just as a quick heads up, don't call them quarterly, call them periodic, please, because if you miss a quarterly and something goes badly, then you missed a quarterly review and a cyber breach happened because you didn't run a quarterly. Your your lawyer might be having conversations with their lawyer. So just have periodic reviews of what they're doing and just check stuff is there. But ideally, your systems, those things should remain relatively unchanged. But check them periodically just to err on the side of caution, because everyone's brought on a level one technician who's gone, oh, what does this do? I think Cloudflare had one recently, and so did Amazon. But next slide, please. Customers do not care about how the cake is made. They want the cake. If they ask for a chocolate cake, give them a chocolate cake. Do not give them a bag of flour, 2 eggs, some milk, and some sugar. Give them a cake. Do not talk about how you've got the best password manager, how YubiKey is better than Duo or vice versa, or how you're using Qualys instead of Datto's vulnerable. They don't care. They really don't. I engage at board levels all the time. The moment you talk shop, they turn off. Sell and talk to the outcome. Talk to the value it provides. This provides you certainty and assurance of your existing position that you can advertise and demonstrate to your customers. I cannot stress that enough. The moment you start talking tech with a non-tech, they turn off. You are now wasting your time and theirs and a sales opportunity. Queensland Law Society, as Ryan talked to earlier, they have endorsed it, I think is the correct terminology. It's not mandated. It is encouraged and supported. And as a result, it's setting the bar for what demonstrates due care and reasonable diligence. One of the advantages the SMB framework brings through from the Silver Plus is it provides you a defined security benefit. And I've been working with 2 or 3 brokerages to help rewrite their policy questionnaires to align to SMB1001 requirements. And going, this is what it does, this is how it means it, and all the other bits and pieces, so they can understand what this does. I've even pushed back against a couple of insurers literally going, your questionnaire is terrible. We'll fill it in, but we need to have a conversation after this because you are not asking good questions. Like one of them went, are you backing up this? No, I'm not. My MSP is. But the language is explicitly in capital letters, you. It's like, well, no, I've paid someone else to do that. So, and it's even simple things like that that they're getting wrong. So, yeah.
There really is a level of poor quality, and it's not intentional, but it's an unknown unknown for brokers who now want to offer cyber liability insurance. So it is a call to you as the partners and not the experts of cyber insurance and business insurance, but at least to question it. It is your responsibility to question the quality of your own insurance policy, but
Yes.
also the brokers that you might actually rely on. And so, at least in this case, the standard and the certification is raising the bar for the insurers to ask the right questions and rely on the right legally attested to information.
Yes. So one of the first things I do when I'm reviewing and assessing a client is I ask to see their cybersecurity insurance questionnaire and policy, and I read it. I then go and check their questionnaire about what they've actually got. Now, I say this with full transparency and openness. Do not advise on their insurance policy. You are not an insurance broker. You will get slapped by the financial regulators. If you read their policy and you have concerns, the best thing you can say is, I would like to run this policy past another insurance broker. Do I have your consent to do that? Pass it on to a second broker to review and check and validate. Do not offer advice on the adequacy of their policy unless you are a licensed insurance broker. So, and if you need introductions, reach out. I know heaps. The best place I've found this is competitive advantage. It's use the SMB as a marketing tool. It is lets you push on with getting things done and at progressing it. Next slide. Cool. Sell the outcome, not the hours. Can't be clearer than that. I've worked with one MSP that wanted to sell per control. Don't do that. Work out how long it takes to do a 20 seat, a 50 seat, a 70 seat, and do a fixed price point. plus tooling costs. Simplest way to sell it. You have to align to their headcount. Don't go too high, of course, you'll kill it. You can on-sell, upsell your tools as they need to meet it, so password managers, backup, things like that, and do walk them up the ladder through bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond. Make sure you refer to the certification as a subscription. Do not call it something else. And when you price it to them, make sure it is on its own pricing line. Ryan will be able to comment on this later, but if you buy the subscriptions in bulk, you can get them at a volume discount. You can also do things like keep them on retainer as a managed service. So this is like what you already do. Next slide. Don't make it optional. Can't stress that enough. If they don't have it, you're carrying their risk for them. Plain and simple. If they are exposing you to risk, I've worked with MSPs who are now firing customers for refusing to move down the SMB1001 pathway. The increased revenue they're generating from the additional tools sold is making up for the loss of customer. So they lower their work volume, increase their security, lower their risk, and improve profitability by making it non-optional. If you don't know how to write policy, have a chat. And Ryan mentioned that cybersecurity is an ongoing journey. It's not a once and done. You need to continually tweak and manage and improve the cybersecurity posture. And one of the greatest things about the SMB 1001 is I refer to as being a laddering framework. What was in platinum last year, some of the things have been pushed into gold this year. What was in gold, a couple have been pushed into silver. Capture the evidence. I said it before, I'll say it again. It makes your job easier in the future. And please just don't try to slip in more tooling to try and make a little bit more margin, because that will create a high level of distrust with the customer if they have even an ounce of technical skill. And in short, be honest and have integrity about how you sell it, because then that'll generate trust with the client. Next slide. And I will now bounce it back to Claire.
Thank you very much. I think that was an interesting point you made about you're not only making a record of what you're doing to cover your ass, it's also so you could go back and say, what were we doing a year later, when you've got to kind of go through and confirm again. I thought that was a really interesting point. So what Manage Protect do, as to Ryan's point earlier, we support you in creating a scalable SMB 1001 practice, something that's repeatable and consistent. As we've made a number of points, the point we've made a number of times is around, you can do this for one customer and then you're like, oh, that's done. But how do you make it profitable? You turn it into a repeatable process so that you can have lower skilled people working on it, and it can be done faster and more effectively and still to the appropriate standard. So we'll help you with that. We'll help you with we have a mapped compliance framework against each of the requirements, so we can recommend any tech if your stack isn't complete. We have a dedicated integrator who can help you either implement it or work with your clients. We have document templates, policies, procedures, plans. They form quite a significant proportion of the requirements for gold, at least. So you're not looking at a blank page. We can help you with those documents. And we'll kind of keep you accountable a little bit. We'll set meetings, say how's it going, so it doesn't fall off your very, very long list of things to do. Maybe if you're doing it for yourself, it might get pushed down the list. If you're doing it for a client, they might lose interest. We'll kind of help try and keep it at the top of everyone's to-do list. And also we run webinars and various educational pieces, blog posts, process updates. This, it's a moving, the requirements change from time to time. And as we know, cybersecurity is just yet another thing we have to stay on top of. So Manage Protect do really try and help you stay aware of those things. And what we have at the minute is a deal with Guard. So they're presenting an offer where you can have a gold certification either for yourselves and for a client, or just for a client for free. I think it's normally about $400. Is that right, Ryan? So yes, you can get this free gold certification if you let us help you through it, and well, you can understand how we add value during the process. And we will, of course, make sure to show you how Guards can make that easier and simpler with their cybersecurity offering. And I think we now have time, a few minutes for questions. We have run a bit long, but if anyone has any questions further to the ones we've had, I'd be very happy to answer.
Questions for me in the chat. Is that right?
Oh,
What are
sorry.
the
There's one that says from Norton, you've been very engaged this session, Norton. Thanks. What are the
Questions are
costs
good.
ongoing for each level? I think they're published.
Yeah, I think it's 95 for bronze, 195 for silver, 395 for gold, 795 for platinum, 995 for diamond, $3,000 audit fee for platinum, $5,000 audit fee for diamond.
pretty close? Only 595 for platinum,
Oh,
not 795.
oh.
9 out of 10. Good job. So yes, it's an annual attestation. It's because the standard is dynamic, it updates annually, so the certification needs to be renewed annually. But with so partners, you do get your discount, 15% direct, 20% through other channels. You can resell them.
Hmm.
If you do have big bulk orders you want to make, you can reach out to me and we can have a chat about that. 50, 100, however you want to do that, which is not uncommon. But with the help of Manage, Protect, and Guards, as an example, that cost is $0. You're not allowed to resell those credits because, of course, they're gifted to you or gifted to the SMBs that you use that in. But this is a really cool way that Guards and Manage, Protect have been able to step up and remove the paywall for you and your SMBs to get to gold. Now, some of the other benefits of that are, of course, you are building a stack for you that is rinse and repeat,
Mhm.
right? That is that if Guards covers a bunch of stuff, and I think there's Sentinel-1 and Checkpoint and a bunch of other things that you can actually push through that same Guards architecture, then of course what's left might just be your password managers, which Manage Protect can help you with. It might be your backups, which Manage Protect can help you with. It might be your GRC tools that Luke can then integrate with Manage Protect and others to drive that through for you. And so now you've got your bundle that you can rinse and repeat across your clients. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to use one or all or everything from one particular vendor or disty or others. That is the flexibility that you have. As much as the standard has removed the subjectivity about what to do, the how is up to you.
Mm.
The how is your choice. The how is your unique sales proposition that you can take to your ideal client profile. So really try and nail that down and put that on your website, partners. That's what you want to do. Build your brochureware around how you, with the help of Manage, Protect, and others, actually drive that SMB1001 certifiable program of work. The subjectivity has been removed around the why, the what, the sales proposition. Drive them to gold if they need to get to the compliance outcome. How specifically you do that in a profitable. I heard the other day it's like 75% of MSPs are not profitable. How many times has someone said, "Oh, I can't believe, certification is commercial and you're charging this, and how dare people make profit?" Sorry about that. You need to make profit to survive. Well, who is going to run an MSP without profit?
For love.
For love. That's not the currency, unfortunately, in the fair exchange of this world. It actually is the financial fair exchange. That's the way you can now build profitable programs of work. So, if you and there are communities and SMBITs and others out there that will help you work through that maturity journey as an MSP as well, because the operating structure of your business actually powers this. So it's good to have the certification programs of work here, but there is still an element of how do you run your business? How do you sell? And that is what you can lean on the Managed Protects and others to help you with that value added resell of these platforms to help you mature your business, not just your cyber program.
One other thing that might be of interest to everyone is that I've written, and I haven't mapped this against a specific product or vendor. I've written an ebook, literally SMB1001 Enablement for MSP. It's on the website. That's for the 2025 edition. The 2026 edition, I'm currently back and forthing with my graphic designer to make it pretty because apparently I can't do pretty. Look at this. So as a result, that'll be ready. We want to have that out before the new year to accommodate the changes to the standard that come through. Ryan, please correct me again if I got this wrong. If anyone's working towards the 2026 standard, they can now access that via the portal, but they cannot attest or accredit to it until January 1st. Is that correct?
Certification starts in the new year. So we'll update all the toolkits and workbooks literally from this week. You'll start to
Yep.
see that in the platform soon. So you can prepare for you and your clients in 2026. You need a current gold. You don't need to have moved your MSP or your consulting firm to the current to be able to guide them, but you do need a current copy of the SMB 1001
Oh,
standard so that you know what you're doing.
that was one of the things we didn't cover. You can only support a client to the level your organization holds. So if
Correct.
you only hold silver, you cannot support a client to gold, platinum, diamond. So you
Yes, that is
need to engage
that is
another
a
department.
CyberCert policy. That is
Yes.
not an SMB 1001. That's a CyberCert quality assurance policy. When someone says, how do you guide a client if you're only at bronze? I'm sorry, you can't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
pretty
bronze
reasonable.
them.
So if you do need to get in touch with Luke for any reason, for example, if you want to request that ebook, which I have read, it is excellent, please do reach out with those details. We will send out the recording of this webinar and some further information around that offer with guards. And if you want to talk to Ryan, you've got to go through me. So there's my details there.
Free to sign up as a CyberCert partner, free to get your gold certification if you go through the Manage Protect pathway. All of the toolkits, all of the resources are provided to you inside the dashboard. And then, of course, if you need to pimp that up with a little bit more expertise and experience, of course, that's where Luke and the team come into that as well to help you really bring that to life. I don't think there's any more questions in there, Claire.
We're good.
No, thank you both so much. I really appreciate your sharing your experience and knowledge. It's one thing kind of reading books about it, but it's quite another when you've been in the field. You've seen what's going on. You've seen the mistakes people make. You've seen how you can, implement it effectively. So thanks very much. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Thank you, Luke.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks for everyone for joining.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
wonderful day. Bye.